Watch this.
Well, it has been quite a week here in the Gem State, especially in the politics world. And guess what? Not even Friday yet, so there's still time for more. But maybe you saw this over the last few days. Idaho has made national news once again. This time, it's not for our growing population or our rising home prices, no. Instead, our governor and lieutenant governor are back in the ring, this time battling it out over a new collection of issues. And if you're a fan of NBC's The West Wing, this is a story for you. Let's break down the timeline of what happened. On Tuesday, Governor Little announced that he was heading down to Texas with 9 other Republican governors. Purpose of the trip? Take a tour of the Rio Grande River and discuss the surge in drug overdoses from drugs like meth and fentanyl coming into Idaho via Mexico. But before he even left Idaho, Governor Little sent this letter right here to Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin. And we're going to read it together for you right here. Here we go. Dear Lieutenant Governor McGeachin, I write to inform you that from Tuesday, October 5th to the October 6th, I will be out of the state of Idaho. The governor writes, my time in Texas will be brief and it will not at all hinder my ability to perform any official duties as Idaho's elected governor. I am not aware of any official business that will require your services in an acting governor capacity. In the event my absence renders me unable to carry out the duties of the office, my staff will notify you immediately. So it sounds like the governor may be trying to get at something with that letter. What could it mean? Well, before we launch into some expert analysis as well as some legal implications, let's all get on the same page about what happened this week. Timeline, take it away. This is the email Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin sent to Major General Michael Garshak with the Idaho National Guard. In it, McGeachin talks about the situation down at the southern border, including the influx of Haitian migrants that are trying to make their way into the United States. Because of the border crisis, McGeachin inquired about sending National Guard troops from Idaho to Texas to help, quote, protect our state from drugs and human trafficking. It's important to note that Governor Little was heading to the border to discuss that very topic on the same day. What timing? Major General Garshak responded to McGeachin's email. He said the request for help from Texas and Arizona was for law enforcement, not the National Guard. And since he had no request for the Guard from Texas or Arizona, just law enforcement, Garshak explained to the lieutenant governor that he would not be sending anyone anywhere. Before Governor Little had even left the state, though, McGeachin clearly was preparing to step in as acting governor. Come Tuesday, at about 3:45 in the afternoon, the lieutenant governor tweeted this, saying, quote, today as acting governor, I fixed Governor Little's executive order on vaccine passports, end quote. She goes on to say that this order would ensure that K-12 schools and universities could not mandate COVID-19 testing or require vaccines. It was signed and it went into effect that day. Less than 10 minutes later, though, Governor Little tweeted. He's tweeted this in response, saying, quote, I will be rescinding and reversing any actions taken by the lieutenant governor when I return. He called McGeachin's attempt to send National Guard troops to the border a, quote, political grandstand when he was already there to discuss the very issue. The governor goes on to say that the people of Idaho can be assured that their duly elected governor will continue to fight the issue at the border. And all of this begs the question, what happens next time Governor Little wants to exit the state of Idaho? Time will tell. Another big question that people are asking, did Governor Little have the power to sign an executive order from Texas, which he did to undo the McGeachin executive order? Well, this all depends on how you read the Idaho Constitution, specifically the section that says, quote, in the event of the governor's absence from the state, the powers, duties, and annulments of the office shall devolve upon the lieutenant governor. Some say absence of the state means physically leaving the state. Some believe absence from the state means the governor cannot do their duties while also gone. Others think it's a combination of both those answers. Now, it has been pointed out that the Idaho Constitution was approved in 1890, well before modern phone technology. So did the authors of the Idaho Constitution envision the current scenario with Little and McGeachin? Almost certainly not. But if anyone has a time machine at home, I'm happy to hop in and get their opinion on this. A real note, though, on the word absence. Crux of the situation here. In addition to being the opposite of the word present, another definition of the word absent is, quote, inattention to things present, heedlessness. That's from 1886. It's the edition of the Webster's Complete Dictionary of the English Language that was published 4 years before the Idaho Constitution was adopted. One take we did get, though, the Attorney General's office, the AG's office weighing in here, and we're going to read from the report into their decision and opinion on the situation. We'll skip to the conclusion. It finds that, quote, in short, while this is a close legal question, as demonstrated by the split between the states that have addressed this question, a reviewing court could conclude that Governor Little's interpretation of absence from the state in Article 4, Section 12 of Idaho's Constitution, as expressed in his July 29th letter, is correct, and that absence from the state means effective absence, not physical absence. So Governor Little's preemptive letter to McGeachin saying he could still perform the gubernatorial duties from afar, it could be allowed, meaning that the term acting governor may not be needed. Again, though, this is just the opinion of the Attorney General's office. It is not legally binding or anything like that. So the ball seems to be in the Lieutenant Governor's court now to challenge all of this in a courtroom. We'll see if that happens. All right, I think we are all up to speed now, and you can text us any questions you may have about the situation. We'll get to some of those later. But what does all this mean? For perspective on everything we just talked about and the unique relationship between Governor Little and Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, we sat down with Dr. Jacqueline Kettler, a political science expert that studies and researches local and state politics at Boise State.
Right? I mean, we know that this conflict has affected kind of their ability to work together. In these situations, Governor Little has come back pretty quickly, reversed the executive orders that the Lieutenant Governor has made, but you could have some flip-flopping of policy, these types of things, so it can create confusion on what is actually the status of policies, as well as just, I think a lot of people have been kind of frustrated by what they view as political grandstanding or political stunts.
Because when I try to explain what's been going on between the governor and the lieutenant governor to people who aren't really plugged into Idaho politics, they say, it sounds like a mess and it doesn't sound like the government's working. Is the government working? Is this just a part of the process?
Well, conflict is part of politics, right? And especially we have these ideological divisions within the Republican Party, and so there are differences of preferences and opinions on what direction policy should be going. And so we definitely will see this type of conflict. But this, again, seems fairly unique, and I think people are starting to get frustrated given that the pandemic situation, the COVID situation is still, we've still got a lot of challenges and issues going on. And so having these sorts of debates and issues happening while everything else is going on, I think people are finding frustrating.
Outside of Idaho, have you ever heard of a situation where the lieutenant governor is making executive orders while the governor's out of state?
I think that there are instances of it, but usually that's in cooperation or coordination, right? It's not so much that doing it in a way that's changing the policy of what the governor's been doing. Usually it's in alignment. It is a little, as far as I know, it is strange for how the situation is playing out.
Other than confusion for constituents or agencies, are there consequences when the lieutenant governor makes an executive order and then the governor makes an executive order to undo that action?
I think these have been quick enough that the general kind of consequences have probably been fairly limited. There's also been questions about the legality of some elements, and so, I think we haven't actually seen them be fully implemented, right? It's been short enough time periods, but again, it diverts a lot of attention from other issues. It spends a lot of kind of political energy focused on these situations as opposed to trying to address other policy challenges.
Is there, any situation or dynamic that we can compare what the lieutenant governor and the governor are going through right now? Or is this just so unique that it's unprecedented?
I think that's a great question. I know that there are other states. I believe North Carolina's had an instance where you had a governor from one party and a lieutenant governor from the other, and then there were some pretty intense divisions on policy and things like that. But again, when you have that partisan, you're of different parties, you kind of expect some of that sort of conflict, perhaps. I think, this is a fairly unique situation.
Trust in government and trust in politicians over the last 18 months seems to have been really challenged. When you have a situation like this where there's turmoil, What do you think that does for public trust in government or public perception of what's going on at the state's highest level?
I think for the Lieutenant Governor, there are probably a group of supporters who are very supportive of these types of actions. But I think there are plenty of citizens that as well that are frustrated at, you know, kind of political stunts or grandstanding rather than trying to address some of these real policy issues and public health issues we have, as well as I think just some probably confusion at what is going on. And yeah, I think that it probably does affect views of trust in government and how, you know, being probably kind of unhappiness with the direction.
An interesting note from Dr. Kettler as we head into the election season. She tells me that she's seeing a trend nationally of more and more negative political advertising, and it will be interesting to see how that shakes out here locally. Of note, Brad Little has not formally announced that he is seeking re-election. The feeling is that he will, but I guess it is wait and see until he makes the decision. He hasn't made the decision. Well, I have a feeling a lot of you will be watching all of this play out with us heading into May. That's when the Republican primary will be. And we mentioned before that this spat between two of our elected officials has garnered major national attention. Major media outlets have all commented on the bitter fight for power and the COVID vaccines and all the issues between Little and McGeachin. But we did see some recognizable names that have also taken to Twitter to express their thoughts on this past week's roller coaster of events. Some serious, some a little lighthearted. Now on Tuesday, mere hours after the tweets from Little and McGeachin began circulating on Twitter, one of our congressmen decided to weigh in on the matter. Representative Mike Simpson tweeted this, saying in part, he was disappointed by the, quote, distractions of Lieutenant Governor McGeachin's actions. He went on to say it took away from the real work that Governor Little was doing at the border, finding solutions to the crisis there. Not exactly a glowing praise from our state representative there. Another public figure in our region, though, they threw some shade at the Lieutenant Governor as well. Governor Spencer Cox of Utah tweeted this earlier today, a subtle subtweet that many people in the comments were pretty quick to pick up on. But Governor Cox again in Utah said, quote, feels like a good day to remind people how lucky I am to have the best lieutenant governor in the country, end quote. And two photos were then posted of the governor and lieutenant governor there in Utah, making me wonder when the last time we had Governor Little and Governor McGeachin, Lieutenant Governor McGeachin, all together. If anyone has a picture of the two of them together recently, we'd love to see it. COVID-19 can affect anyone. We've seen that play out since early last year. But one demographic is facing an increased risk. And it's not just about their life, it's about the life of their unborn child. What's on your mind today? Whether on this 208 or out in the 208, we want to hear about it. Always looking for community notes and story ideas. Send us your thoughts. 208-321-5614. Just make sure to include your name and hashtag the 208. Well, COVID cases continue to swarm the Gem State, infecting younger, healthier populations with the more contagious Delta variant, and that includes pregnant women. Now, hospitals in Idaho are reporting a rise in pregnant hospitalizations, and in some areas, a rise in stillbirths because of it. Our Katya Stepovic looked into the situation and explains more.
On Thursday, medical professionals took to the stand at Kootenai Health in northern Idaho to illustrate the grim picture they are forced to face every day inside the hospitals.
The thing that's frustrating for many of us is that a lot of these people don't need to be in the hospital if they were vaccinated.
And among the unvaccinated in the hospital are pregnant women.
We've definitely seen more pregnant hospitalized patients in the ICU. You're really taking care of two people, and I think that's a really difficult situation. It makes us all very nervous, but so far we've been lucky.
While Kootenai Health has seen good outcomes, other parts of the state, like St. Luke's and Magic Valley, are seeing concerning trends.
We're seeing more stillbirths, unexplained stillbirth, and towards the end of the pregnancy. We lost a baby that was a little too early, and this was in the intensive care unit. You know, the entire staff in the intensive care unit was just blown away. The morale was just drained, you know. It's kind of like, well, this felt like something good we could do.
Dr. Stacy Seib, who specializes in high-risk pregnancies at St. Luke's in Magic Valley, says in April there were around 18 confirmed cases of pregnant women with COVID. In September, that number set a record high at 150 confirmed COVID cases. Seib says the risks for pregnant women with COVID-19 are disturbing.
If you're pregnant, you know, you're probably about 3 to 5 times as more likely to be hospitalized and twice as likely to succumb to the process and die. The thing about COVID is it causes some issues with blood clotting. And, you know, placentas are very vulnerable to blood clots, you know, and I think we can see smaller babies that aren't growing well as well.
He says 97% of pregnant women who are hospitalized with COVID-19 are not vaccinated.
What is the emotional, physical, mental toll that it takes on healthcare workers when they're seeing these women come in who could have been vaccinated and really helped their situation, but they aren't, and sometimes the worst happens because of it?
You know, I think everybody's getting very, very tired, and then when you see it happening to younger and younger people, or things that are affecting families so directly, it's very, very demeaning. I mean, it's like where are we going? And the question is why?
Do you have any women saying, when can I get the vaccine now that I'm in the hospital?
Yeah, we have had some people say, yeah, I think you're right. It's time. I really appreciate moms worrying about what they're putting in their body and how it's going to affect their babies. But I think the vaccine itself, it doesn't really cross the placenta as the mRNA part of the vaccine, but it does create antibodies that will cross the placenta and help protect the newborn baby.
Dr. Seib worries that the situation could get worse during the colder months. So now is the time for not only pregnant women, but for everyone to get the shot.
Get a vaccine, please. You know, it seems like a scary thing, but it's the best thing that's going to protect both you and your baby. And I don't know how to reassure people any more than that.
Katya joins us now. And Katya, I'm curious, for newborns whose mothers were infected with COVID when they gave birth, do we know if there's any, side effects or consequences there?
Well, there's obviously, like we heard, the risk of the baby dying when the mother is pregnant and giving birth and also has COVID-19. But the chances of the newborn getting COVID from their mother is actually low. Obviously, it's even lower if that mother is vaccinated, and that's according to the CDC. But when a pregnant woman is hospitalized, like we heard with COVID, like you heard Dr. Seib say, there's actually that risk of the baby growing at a slower rate. So that's fascinating new information. But again, there's still a lot more to be done on researching the impact on these newborns.
And I know that you're following that for us, so we'll update as that information becomes available. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Katya. We are 1 week into October, and it's finally feeling like fall out there, and we have Major League Baseball playoffs. But in honor of the upcoming Halloween holiday and the rapidly dropping temperatures, we dug through the old tapes today, and we wanted to find something fun to get us to Friday. Of course, something a little spooky, too, because it's that time of the year. And, of course, something with Brian Holmes, because we miss him already. He'll be back. Now, years ago, Brian headed out to Meridian for the annual Meridian Scarecrow and Harvest Festival, and that event doesn't even exist anymore, but the Scarecrows might still be out there in someone's yard. So today, we take you back to a simple time, the year 2004.
Fall feels differently in Meridian.
Original and unique.
It also looks differently.
We wanted to be different, yeah.
Because they celebrate the harvest season with scarecrows.
This is the Meridian Scarecrow and Harvest Festival.
Why scarecrows?
Something that was not done throughout the area, and then to make us a little unique.
This year's theme is heroes.
Scarecrow heroes.
We've seen everything from Spider-Man, Superman, to John Wayne, the Lone Ranger.
To teachers, musicians, and moms.
Whoever people think are their heroes.
Like soldiers.
Heroes, American heroes.
It's the first thing Ruth thought of when she first heard of this year's theme.
That was the first thing.
First thing.
First thing.
So she stuffed the scarecrows, set out the signs, and selected the music.
Stating that we are saluting our American heroes.
Cactus. This day spa also has music. So you have it all.
So we have it all.
Including the hay-stuffed heroes.
We decided to do Heroes of the Old West. This is Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers.
John Wayne. Gene Autry.
Autry has his guitar.
And Roy is chasing that bad guy behind the tree.
There's another bad guy over there.
There is, he's hiding.
At the Express Cafe, their heroes are super.
It's superheroes coming to get their check.
Coming to get their check?
Yeah.
They get paid?
They do.
It's a setup inspired by their boss.
Every time we get paychecks, he always says our boss goes from zero to hero.
Down the road at DG's nursery,
Help!
their display of dastardly deeds
Wahahaha.
is overshadowed by
The Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger. That's a good hero.
He's a very good hero.
You see, they don't have to be scary.
Just they have to be scarecrows.
Brian Holmes,
Help!
Idaho's News Channel 7.
So we reached out to the city of Meridian today to find out why this fall festival went by the wayside. And Shelley Houston, who's the marketing coordinator for the Parks and Rec department there, said the last known festival was in 2007, and she wasn't really sure why the Scarecrow competition got spooked. But fear not. Another event has since taken place, and it's called Trunk or Treat. And businesses from across the valley sign up to decorate trunks for trick-or-treaters in downtown Meridian. This year's celebration is actually in a few weeks, Thursday, October 21st. From 6 to 9 p.m., there will be live music, food trucks, and a whole lot of candy. And it's free for everyone to attend. If you're looking for more information, you can head to the City of Meridian's website. Of course, costumes are encouraged, but I wonder how many of you will go as scarecrows. All right, let's put Thursday's 208 to bed here. We got a comment from Karen saying, I usually don't pay attention to who's running for lieutenant governor. I will from now on, and the Ada County commissioners. Yes, your votes matter. Local votes matter. A lot of people like to talk about the presidential election. Arguably, your vote in local elections matters way more than that. One more comment I think we have here. Do we have one more, Melissa? Okay, looks like we do. Oh, okay, we do. Does Joe Paris get his hairstyling tips from Larry Gebert? Yes, I do. Just right over the top. That's how we do it.